Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and welcome to a pretty requested video. Today we're going to be talking all about lecture notes and how to get the most out of the notes that you take. I've kind of summarised everything that I want to say into 5 main points, and hopefully after watching this video you guys will have a better idea of how at least I like to take my uni notes. If you're unaware or if you've never seen my face before, I am currently in my 4th year at university, so I've had quite a lot of practice at taking the old lecture notes, and I hope that some of the stuff that I have to say will help you guys out. Obviously lectures and taking notes in lectures are a massive part of university life, but it is so incredibly different from anything that you will be used to from school, and I don't know why that jump isn't supported more. It just seems quite silly. Like in school you sit, you do worksheets, you do group work, you chat over things, but you don't sit and have the teacher talk at you for 1 hour and need to take notes on it. Like, it's so different, it's such a different way of learning, and it can be a real trial and error process to see what works best for you. But I would say that over the last 4 years I've tried out a few different styles and I've definitely found what works for me. So bear in mind that this might not be for everyone, but it's just some good advice. So I feel like the number one place to start is, me personally, I like to handwrite my notes. And I would say that I'm probably in the minority. The majority of people at university, especially on my course, tend to take notes on laptops, but I just don't like it. I tried it for a while and it just didn't work for me, so I went back to the good old-fashioned notebook. For me personally, I feel that writing things out is easier and faster than typing it. And again, I know that that is not the case for a lot of people, but for some reason I just can't type fast. Like, I just mess up left, right and centre. I also feel like handwriting your lecture notes can be quite useful because it allows you to go back in and add in little bits here and there, and it's also extremely useful for drawing little pictures or diagrams. And I know that personally I really learn by making little sketches of things, and that is something that I couldn't really do on a computer. Like, I could do it, but it would take ages, whereas if something happens or a little diagram pops up on the screen, I can quickly just note it down in my notebook. A kind of more practical tip if you are wanting to handwrite your notes is I would extremely recommend using an A4 size notebook rather than anything smaller. I've seen a lot of people at uni using like little A5 jotters and stuff, but I just feel like that is not the most practical way. Like, using an A4 book, you have so much more space. These are the notebooks that I've been using this year. I actually just found these in TK Maxx for like $1.80. They were in like the little sale section. So I picked up these two and another one as well, which I am literally just about to start using because although I've only been at uni for 3 weeks, these are nearly full. But yeah, these are the notebooks I picked up for this year and I really like them. As you can see, they are like A4 size and they're also pretty thin, so it's a lot easier to write on. I feel like I'm going to try and explain this, but it's going to be explained very badly, so I hope you understand. But like, you know how when you get a smaller notebook, like an A5 notebook, they're usually like more chunky. I find that harder to write on because it's fine until you get to the end of the line and you're like hands falling off the side, whereas with these little skinny boys, that doesn't happen. I feel like using an A4 notebook as well also gives you a lot more space for the information that you're writing down. Like, if the lecturer is going over something that's quite complex and you're making lots of notes on it, you can sometimes need to spread that over 2 pages on a smaller notebook, whereas if you have a larger notebook you can fit more information onto the 1 page and it's all there in the same space. Another little practical tip, and I'd probably say this is one that I kind of recommend the most, is if you are handwriting your notes in a notebook, only write your notes on one side of the page. Like, here is my notes from a science tutorial that I had recently, and as you can see I've only been writing on the one side of the page, and although that might look like a waste to some people, there is method to my madness. If you write your notes on only one side of the page, it gives you space on the other side to add more information. Like, as you can see here, this is like all of the notes that I took in the tutorial, and then here's little bits I've added on. Basically, this just gives you space to add more information if you then go back and recap the lecture and there's something that you've not noted down the first time. Maybe it's something that you don't quite understand, so you've gone and done a reading on it to try and gain more knowledge. that can all be added next to the relevant information that you've taken from the lecture, literally just on the other side of the page, so it's not as if you're adding it on at the end of all of the notes that you've taken. It's also really useful if you have a lecture and then you go into the tutorial, and maybe when you're in the tutorial you have a more in-depth discussion about a certain area. You can then go and like find the part of the lecture that your discussion relates to and add in any more information there. I found this really useful in one of my professional studies lectures because the lecturer was giving us a lot of information really quickly and I couldn't really keep up with it. So I ended up going back and re-watching the lecture. So this is like my lecture notes, and then this is a little bit that I've been adding in. And again on the next side, just so you can kind of see, it just makes it a lot easier to keep all the relevant information together and in the same place. This is something that I only kind of realised last year, and as soon as I started making my notes in that way, I've seen a massive difference. Like, it really helps my brain to understand it. It can also be quite useful if you're doing kind of more practical things within your lecture or within your tutorial. So these are some notes that I took when I was doing a music tutorial recently, and then over on this side I have kind of more practical little bits and bobs. So basically we were asked to do an activity which we could use with the children, so I did that on the other side of the page rather than alongside all my other notes. And similarly, in a maths lecture that we had just last week, we were kind of doing practical examples of some of the methods, so that is something that I would put on the other side as well. Tip number 4 is use your time and your space effectively. When you're sitting in a lecture, you're getting a lot of information thrown at you at quite a fast pace, and you need to learn to use your time effectively. There is no way that you're going to be able to write down everything that your lecturer is saying, and there is no way that you should need to anyway. The first little tip that I would give to help you make the most of your time is do not write down what is already written on the PowerPoint, because chances are that PowerPoint is going to get saved and uploaded onto whatever kind of online portal your university uses, and when it comes to revision time you're going to be able to go back and re-download that PowerPoint and have all the information still in the same place, so there's no point in you spending time trying to write it down in your notes. Instead, focus on what the lecturer is saying. If they're giving examples which they haven't put on the PowerPoint, that's the kind of stuff that you want to note down. Similarly, another great way to use your revision notes is, rather than writing down exactly what is being said word for word, write it down in a way that you'll understand. Rather than just writing down what you hear as you hear it, take a moment to think about what's being said and write it down into a way that's going to make sense when you go back to look at it. There is no point in just copying down scrolls and scrolls of big words that you're not actually going to be able to make sense of when it comes to revision time. So take your time, let yourself process it, and only write down the valuable information. And tip number 5, everybody knows that highlighters are great, but use them in the right way. I'm sure you guys will all have seen these bad boys. These are my best friends, but I don't like to use them in lectures. I know for a fact that if I put these out on the table next to me, I would just want to highlight everything, but that is not productive. As a kind of rule of thumb, I would always say don't use your highlighters in your lectures. They're not going to help you take in any more information, and if anything, they're going to distract you from what you should actually be listening to. Another risk of trying to use your highlighters and trying to use colour coding when you're listening to a lecture is that you may find yourself over highlighting. I know that when you're in a lecture and you're getting all of this information thrown to you, it's kind of hard to decide what the important bits are and what the kind of sideline stuff is. And while you're in the mood of highlighting everything, you can kind of get carried away. Whereas if you wait until you've finished a block of lectures, you then have a better idea of what's important and what isn't, and that's when you can then go in and highlight. So instead of taking your beloved highlighters to your lecture, just leave them at home. You can show them all the love that they deserve once you get back. Personally, I like to get my highlighters out when it comes to revisiting that learning. If I'm going to rewatch a lecture, I'll then take the highlighters out, and perhaps most importantly, when it comes to revision time or essay time, that is when they come in handy. So there we have it. Those are my kind of 5 main tips for taking lecture notes and kind of making the most of the notes that you do take. If you guys did enjoy this video, please do give it a thumbs up, and if you have any more kind of more practical university videos, let me know, because although I post a lot of university content on my channel, it's never normally this focused, but I do quite like it. So I'm going to head off now. If you guys aren't already subscribed, please do, and if you do that, I will see you again soon with another video. Goodbye!